Welcome to the Dylan Experience. Today is episode 51, and I've got a special guest for you today. But before we get there, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, do all the things that involve that thing. My guest today is known as the Blind Blogger. He went from being a blind, failed carnival owner to becoming a respected amusement equipment broker, to where he is now, an award-winning self-help author, storytelling motivational speaker, online media publicist, host of the What's Your Excuse show, and founder of the What's Your Excuse Network. My guest today is Maxwell Ivey. Max, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And I feel like the conversation today is going to be fun. It's going to be a good one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we had some great exchanges before you press record, so I have no doubt.
We could have kept going. I feel like it was probably good timing to start recording when we did, because otherwise we'd just be talking.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't do pre-interviews anymore, because I found that what would happen is I'd talk to the potential host for an hour or so, and then I'd be like, why didn't I just press record?
Right. Absolutely. I kind of love this, the way I'm doing things now with the first time I meet these people that I interview, like yourself, this is the first time we're meeting. This is 100% genuine. This is us trying to get to know each other, and also kind of learning the deepest stuff we have about, what we're talking about.
Yeah. Although usually the host doesn't share as much deeply as the guest does, but I'm open to you doing that too, if that's where we take this. So
we'll go everywhere if we want to.
Yeah. And that's the really cool thing about a podcast is you can ask anybody you want to be on your show. You can have in-depth conversations with people that you normally wouldn't get an email reply from.
Yep.
And if you're doing it right and you're paying attention, you'll learn things about yourself, or you'll relearn things about yourself during the process of interviewing somebody. So it's the best. It's one of the best things I do, being the host and also being interviewed. I always love these experiences. They're very energizing. I tell people all the time, the most fun, energizing, effective way that I promote my business is by sitting down with other podcasters, because I really don't have to do anything but show up and be Max and have a friendly chat, and later on do some social media stuff, and I've got all this great new content. And also, your followers, they already love you, so they're at least going to give me a listen for a little while. So, but yeah, this podcasting thing is fun. And if it wasn't for all the other stuff that you have to do to keep a podcast going, I probably would talk to people 12 hours a day, because I just enjoy it.
This, to be perfectly honest, and I've said this on the show before, this isn't new for my people, but this is a selfish endeavor, right? For me, I do my mental health coaching. I wrote my book. I do all this stuff outside of this. I'm still in the military, so I do all that stuff for the money. This is 100% for me. I love having conversations with good people like yourself, who have a story to tell, who have lots of knowledge that I don't have. And it's just a wonderful it's a breath of fresh air to listen and learn from people that have different experiences, and yet have the same mentality or the same perspective that I have, based on a vastly different experience that I have. It's always so interesting to me.
Yeah, we can have shared beliefs and understandings without having shared experiences.
Absolutely. And speaking of experiences, Max, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Obviously I gave you an intro, but that doesn't really tell you about who Max is and where Max came from. So tell me the detailed version.
Okay. Excuse me. So I grew up in a family of carnival owners from East Texas, just outside of Houston. I also grew up knowing that eventually I was going to lose part, if not all, of my vision. But regardless of that, my family, they encouraged me to take part in whatever activities I wanted to. I had very supportive family, teachers, coaches. Later on, when I became part of a scout troop for the visually impaired, the scoutmaster and the other boys. So a lot of really positive influences. So even though I knew I was losing my vision, I graduated from a traditional high school and college. I'm one of the few legally blind Eagle Scouts in the country. I was lucky enough to work alongside my family in our carnival for 15 years before my dad passed away. And during those years, my main thing was doing cold calling and eventually cold emailing to book our calendar. And actually doing those bookings is where one of my best known catchphrases of "if you don't ask, they can't say yes" comes from, because when you're trying to book a 7-ride carnival in a state of Texas where everything is bigger and better and faster and scarier than what you have, it ain't easy. You get told no a lot. So my dad said, they can't, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. Now stop complaining and call the next number I give you. So I did the bookings. I helped set up and take down rides. I operated food, games, and pretty much did anything you could do to keep a small business like that going, except drive. They would never let me drive, no matter how tired the rest of the help was. So I did that for a long time. And my dad died of lung cancer in 2003. By 2006, we're out of the business. We had sold our rides to other carnival owners, and we were working with my uncle's carnival. Now, he had a larger carnival, so my games were fine for a small midway with 4 or 5 games, but they couldn't compete on a midway with 20 or 25 games. So gradually, my games started to lose money to the point where I'm like, this is not serving anybody. So I decided to go full in on helping other people sell their used rides. I had to learn how to do that for my family. First, while my dad was alive, because in a small business like that, you don't buy newer stuff without selling the older stuff. And then also, after he passed away, somebody had to get some money out of the equipment we had. So I did that, but I decided I was going to try to do that online with a website called midwaymarketplace.com, and quickly realized I didn't know nothing about nothing when it came to being an online person. So I had all these things to learn. And the first thing I had to learn, because I am blind, almost totally blind, I had to teach myself how to code HTML in order to get my website running. And I hand coded my website for 7 years before finally moving to WordPress. And I thank goodness every day for WordPress, because it means I don't have to have them less thans and greater thans and slashes and all that good stuff running around in my head at 3 o'clock in the morning. And no longer those nightmares of, somebody calling you up because your website is no longer there. So I'm very happy that that's no longer part of my life. I also had to learn how to recruit clients and set fees and write copy. I had to figure out a way to get people to open my emails, which led to creating a lead magnet when I didn't even know what a lead magnet was. Yeah. Building an email list, starting with social media as it came along. And, I'm doing this with a screen reader. I've got no talent, no skills, no money to hire anybody. And a lot of this was before Facebook, before WordPress, and before Wi-Fi. So in many cases, I was trying to upload photos to a website using a 56K modem from my house here in Conroe. So, if it wasn't one challenge, it was 20 challenges, and people started noticing on social media as it came along. And they said, Max, we are very inspired with how you take on all these difficult challenges. You do it with joy. You basically just do whatever the next thing is in front of you. You just figure out a way how to get to that next place. And we'd like to hear more about that. So they encouraged me to share more of what it's like to be a blind entrepreneur. And that led to the second website, theblindblogger.net, where I share my experiences and the life lessons that I've learned and that hopefully can help other people. I've been told many times that I have inspired people to overcome the excuses that are holding them back. And quite a few people have commented on my content about how, if Max can do it, then what's my excuse? So the blog led to a book in 2014 and 4 books so far. It led to my doing public speaking, singing in public, traveling the country solo. It led to doing hundreds of podcast interviews, then booking people on podcasts, then finally starting my own show, What's Your Excuse? And now, that's come, I guess, to the next part down the river, where I have started this podcast network to help other people with disabilities either to launch their own podcast or to help them grow their audience. So we are, building a community of podcasters who have a disability, or people who are able-bodied who want to support people with disabilities. And so far we have one brand new show in 15 months since we started. We have, I think, about 12 or 13 shows that have added their feeds to the website, and I consider those to be like a syndicated show.
Mm-hmm.
And as I told you before we started recording, I'm in the process of helping 2 other people launch shows, hopefully by the 1st of June or the 1st of July at the latest. So we're continuing to grow the network, and hopefully the network will lead to a sense of community. We'll be able to support each other emotionally, help us solve each of our own problems, and help each other grow our audiences so that the ones who want to can monetize or monetize better at some point.
Right.
So you asked for the long version. I should have warned you that the long version might be too long for your show.
Oh no. Good luck with that. I'll let you challenge it. We'll see how long it is.
No, I'm not here to set a record. I'm just here to share the story and hopefully encourage other people. So
absolutely. Max, what blows me away is that in all that, you didn't really even discuss what I think is probably one of the biggest challenges that people probably look at. And that is the fact that there was, back in 2003, when you started this whole kind of business venture, the small business mindset, right? Yeah. You started it in a time where there was relatively little disability advocacy and support for, now you have these companies building, blind versions of their products so that people who are blind can use them, right? And you didn't really even discuss that, of like, you had to code in a time where, like, we're talking about not being able to see, and like you brush over it. I'm blown away by that.
Right. And the reason that happens is because I didn't realize what I was doing. I did not understand how difficult the thing was that I was doing. And that applies to everything I've done. See, that's the thing. I hesitate to say that there's something right about me or wrong about me, because if I say that, then there's no point in your listeners listening to me, because if there's something unique about Max, then there's no point in them listening to Max, because they can't do what Max does. So I disagree with that premise to start with. But the thing is I'm just one of those people who can, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to start from here. And if I look silly doing it, if I fall on my ass a lot, if I have to ask for a lot of help to the point that people stop answering my emails or tell me to go talk to somebody else first, I'm just going to start from here. There's Chris Kremitzmus, dang it. Chris from Podfest Expo. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair enough. It sounds like quite a name.
I'm going to stop trying to pronounce people's last names. It just gets me in trouble. He started Podfest Expo, and a couple years back, he wrote a best-selling book that was called Start Ugly. And when I first heard the marketing he was doing for his book, I said, okay, Chris, when do I get my royalties? Because you're stealing my bit. So that's the thing. I really didn't. I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, now I'm doing a podcast. About 8-9 years ago, I sold a carousel for a mall in Atlanta, Georgia, because I convinced them to record about a 2-minute video of the carousel in operation, so people wouldn't have to drive all the way to Georgia to look at it and decide whether or not they wanted to buy it. I sold that carousel in 3 months. It had been sitting there on other people's lists for over a year with no interest. And I thought to myself, okay, if a video can sell a carousel, maybe a video can sell Max. But I didn't think I was recording a vlog. I didn't think I was recording a podcast. I just said, I'm going to record a couple of videos. I'm going to talk about some stuff we got for sale and see if it works.
Yeah.
And, in between me talking, I'm going to play a video of the equipment running and see what happens. And so I'm doing that for a while. And I still can't believe I actually told podcast hosts that I didn't have a podcast, didn't want a podcast, and would not start a podcast till I could find a co-host to handle all the technical stuff. I didn't realize I was doing it. I had no idea how to, and I've I didn't have the skills to create an intro, so I decided to just sing on my intro. And dang if that didn't catch on to where people are like, we like hearing you sing, Max, could you sing some more? To the point now, if you look at my YouTube stats, you'll find that people listen to more of me singing than they do of me talking. which is really crazy and sad, considering that for years I was afraid to sing in public because people used to make fun of my voice. So the fact that I started doing that because I had to, because it was the only way I felt like I could get my first video out by the deadline I had set for myself, and it worked. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, we're going to try this. It worked on something else. Maybe it'll work on this. And it did. And it's become part of my brand. And last year, I changed some of the words to a song I liked because I wanted to record it, but I didn't like some of the words that the guy who recorded it used. And the next thing I know, somebody's challenged me to write my own song. And I did that. And now I'm working on my second one. So a lot of this stuff, I just don't think about it. I just do it. I think of it as an experience, an adventure. And so that's one of those things. If you can, there's really two ways that you can accomplish things like I have. One is to get to that point where you don't have a choice. Because week in and week out, we would get our carnival open, because if you aren't open on Thursday and they can't buy a funnel cake, trust me, there will be trouble.
Yeah.
And my dad would often tell people, what, did we have a choice? So if you can get yourself to the point where you see like you don't have a choice, which is what worked for me with the coding my website, it's like, it's this or no website. Then I taught myself how to code HTML. If it's, I got to sing, even though it scares the hell out of me, or I won't be able to record this video, then you sing. So I've talked a lot over the years about finding creative solutions or deciding to find solutions instead of making excuses. But I recently realized there's a second part to that. You have to be willing to implement solutions, even if you don't like them.
Yeah.
And in the early days of any big adventure or challenge, you're going to have to implement a lot of solutions that you don't like, because generally the solutions we like take money, experience, training, college educations, so if you're doing this all by yourself or with a very small team or with people who you just happen to know, friends, family, folks on the internet, whatever, then you're going to have to do a lot of things you don't like doing. So one way you can get there is talk yourself around to not having a choice. The other way, which I think is much more fun, is to approach it from a point of view of curiosity, from wonder, from this could be fun no matter what the ultimate result is. Whether, like when I wrote my first book, whether anybody buys this book or not, the process of writing this book is an adventure. So if you can find a way to invoke your curiosity, a sense of wonder, a spirit of adventure. So if you're about to do something that scares you, that challenges you, that you've been talking about for a while, and you're at that point where you think you finally have to do it, is there some way you can see yourself as Bilbo Baggins? Is there some way you can see yourself as Robinson Crusoe? Can you make yourself that, adventurer and see this as some great quest that you're going to go on? The only difference being, of course, in a quest, you have an obvious goal and you have a success or a failure. But if you can make it about the experience, then a lot of this other stuff doesn't, really won't matter. Those are just my personal opinions. Although I did steal a little of that from Elizabeth Gilbert, who's famous for Eat, Pray, Love. She wrote another book that I love called Big Magic, which she wrote for creative people. I highly recommend it to anyone who makes their living as a creative entrepreneur. It's called Big Magic. In there, she wrote that curiosity will carry you through when passion has abandoned you.
How interesting.
And it's just the phrase that stuck with me from that particular book. So like I say, either you don't have a choice, which is how a lot of people, address health issues, because they get to that point where they feel like it's either change or die, or find a way to approach it the way a 5-year-old would.
Yeah. That it's such a powerful place. And there's so much relatability here from my end, because a lot of what I've done in the past 2 years, certainly my life, but the last 2 years has been remarkably challenging, because it's where I started my business was about 2 years ago, 2 years and about a month or so. And just like you back in 2003, I'm learning how to do YouTube. I'm learning how to do TikTok. I'm learning how to do Instagram. I'm learning how to do taxes and accounting and all this stuff that I've never done this stuff before. I'm learning all this. And throughout the entire process, it was, I don't want to do this, but I have to get real curious about it real quick. Otherwise it won't work, and it was both. It's so relatable to see it as both curiosity and lack of choice. Like I didn't allow myself to have any other choice but to succeed, because if I don't, in my mind, because of what I do, like I'm a mental health coach. And the reason I started doing that was like, I lost my father at 6 years old to suicide. I almost ended my life to suicide in 2015. So a lot of this is my own will to give people what I never had and what my dad never had. So I'm sitting there, requiring me like, Dylan, you've got to do this. You don't have any other choice. You don't have any other option, because there's people out there that don't see the options that you can give them, and no one will be able to speak to them like you can. And so through a lot of this, it's been a consistent challenge for me to, kind of reconnect with, why am I doing this? And also become curious because of that, and it's a really remarkable place to be for me. It feels very powerful, and to have that ability to connect that and to empower myself when I don't want to, to get up early, go to bed late to make sure I'm getting my content out, or, doing my podcast late at night sometimes, or, just all the things that we don't want to do, but we have to do. It's so very relatable what you're saying, just because, I'm in this right now,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. And there's two things you were just talking about there that are very important. First, when you mentioned that because I've been through this, I have a special voice. I have a take on mental illness and living with it, and living with family members who are living with it, that other people don't have. So that speaks to the thousands of people who are like, I want to write a book, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to start a blog. But they're like, who will listen to me? Because there are already thousands of other people saying what I know. And so that part, I really, really love that you expressed that, because that needs to be out there a whole lot more. That even if you feel like there are other people saying similar things, you have a unique voice, and you also have unique experiences to you. And as long as you express those in an honest, open, authentic, real way with other people, there's going to be a certain section of the world's population that are going to connect with you. So that was one point. That was one very important point. I wanted to respond to that.
Before you go further, I want to just add to that. It's also important to echo, right? I think people get caught up in this idea that they have to be 100% creative. They have to be original. They have to be everything that everyone else isn't, right? And
yes.
I don't, I think people have it wrong. I think you have to be able to understand when you're echoing other people and share those, you've already done it here, right? Like share those other people's creative work, those original work. And I guarantee you their work wasn't that original, because other people have said it before. Like it's important to retain the message and give it to the next generation, because they need to be able to know it as well.
Yeah. And we used to have a guy on our midway. He traveled with us for years. He eventually lived on our property and passed away living on our property. He was a novelty salesman, and he was a real funny guy, one of those big, fat, jolly guys that always had a joke. And whenever you'd say something to him, well, you've already told me that joke. And he would say something like, you do realize the last new joke was told during the Greeks, or he would throw out names of Greeks. He would throw out Greek names, and we never remembered them because we figured he was making them up. But he would basically say the last new joke was told by Euripides or something along those lines. So you're right. There isn't any really true new content, but you can echo other people's content with your own experiences and your own take on them. just like with food, you know, every year there's a new hit book or chef. And generally, if you listen to them talk long enough, you'll realize that they've combined recipes from different countries, from different times. They've taken things that relatives or other professionals have created and embellished them. So yeah, I think that's a very important point. We don't have to struggle so much to be brand new. There's a lot of value because the truth is, and this is a very sad truth for us as human beings. The truth is, the most important lessons we will learn in our lifetime, we will have to learn more than once.
Yeah.
You know,
Facts.
the things we know we should be doing, we will look up a month from now, and you know, and like just recently, I was talking to somebody, and I said, well, you know, I made this great new relationship on LinkedIn, and they want me to come teach a course for them or something, and their response was, Max, how many other people have you connected with in the last week, month, 3 months? And so even though this is something I know works for me, that I love having conversations, and conversations can lead to opportunities, you know, when you're in stress or when you've got other things going on, sometimes you forget about the things that you know worked, or you will forget the dance steps that brought you to the dance, to kind of piggyback off of an old expression. So we do often have to be reminded of things we shouldn't have to learn more than once. But sadly, for most of us, we will have to relearn some of the lessons for success multiple times throughout our lifetime. So I agree with you. I wasn't feeling it at first, but now that I understand where you were going, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because, you know, we have multiple people saying the same important things in different voices with different words based and making their points with different stories. Then those can combine to be a really powerful message for the world at large. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to, you know, I was thinking about this the other night of, like, you know, remind yourself of who to give credit to, of like, there's someone before you said something or shared with you something that was very valuable and very important. It's good to kind of remind yourself that came from a place of experience. It came from a place of, they didn't tell me this for no reason. And when you really connect with that, you realize people have a lot to teach you, you know, and you forget that, especially in small business. Like sometimes in the beginning of small businesses, I think there's this mentality where you want to do everything yourself, right? Because you want to, whether you want to prove it to yourself or you want to, you know, do whatever it is, right? Everyone has their own reasons, but then you realize after a while, where you start looking at other people doing business, and they're talking to everybody, right? And you're just sitting there, you know, in your one room bedroom, right? Like, you know, with no lights on, at the computer, just working yourself to death, trying to figure out all the things. And you're like looking out the window and you see, you know, your business friends over there having conversations, and you're like, well, they probably know some things. Maybe I should go talk to them, because I'm really tired of this, right? And then you start to actually have conversations about business, and you realize, well, this person can do it for $20 less than what I, you know, less than the time that I invest in all this stuff. And you start learning that when you start leveraging people and their knowledge and their experience, you can actually get a lot more done than just doing everything on your own. And it just makes life easier.
Right. And that leads to something that I talk about quite often, which I didn't know there was a name for it. I just know that I just know that I had been doing it, and it seemed to work for me. And when I explain it to other people, they're like, that seems to work for them. And this idea of, you know, of building a community of people that then being willing to ask for help and willing to accept help when offered. And I gave a talk on that at PodFest in 2018 or 19. And Alex Sanfilippo, who runs Podmatch, a website for matching hosts and guests, he followed me away from the stage and congratulated me for giving such a great talk on interdependence. And I'm like, what is interdependence? So basically, you're right. But by allowing other people to be part of your journey and part of your story, you can accomplish your goals much more quickly with less stress and more joy. So that's one of the things I really love talking to people. And you're right, business people are the worst at asking for help. They either feel like if I ask somebody, they're going to want me to pay them, or they feel like if I ask somebody, I'm going to look weak, inept, and not professional. So business people are the worst. Business people are also the worst at sharing their own personal or business brand stories so that they can make connections with potential customers. But that's another area of struggle for a lot of business people.
Yeah.
So, but business people don't want to ask for help. They don't want to ask for opportunities. It's funny. If you ask somebody why they won't ask for help, it's because they don't want to look weak. If you ask somebody why they don't want to ask for opportunities, they'll say it's because they don't want to look egotistical. So you get answers both ways. But here's what I have learned, and I've found that if I express it this way, it can really unlock the doors for people, because what I ask them to do is take the focus off yourself, put the focus on the other person, and think about how good you feel when you get the opportunity to do something for somebody else, and that person, all they can do for you is say thank you. So think about how good it makes you feel when you carry somebody's groceries, when you hold a door open in an apartment building so they can get in, when you hold a baby for 30 seconds, these little things we do all the time. Just think about how good that makes you feel. And then when it comes to asking for help, remember this expression: when you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that twice because most hosts make me say it twice.
Go for it.
When you refuse to ask for help, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you. So basically, there are so many people out there. I'm sure you're one of these people. You have spent a lot of time either through formal training or life experiences, and you have learned a lot about what you do. People that have honed a skill or a talent, people who have dedicated their lives to a physical exercise sport or playing a musical instrument, people who have accumulated a lot of knowledge either in a specific business or specific field or in general. And most of these people, they look forward to that time in their day when somebody will come up to them and go, I know that you are the best at this. I know that you know everything there is to know about this. I am struggling with this. Would you please help me? And so that's what I think about whenever I have to ask for help, is I'm brightening somebody else's day by asking. And I think that if more people thought of it that way, instead of feeling that they're imposing on somebody when they ask, they would do it a lot more.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is I wrote a song last year called If You Don't Ask. And I had several people who have responded to that saying, Max, I've heard you speak about interdependence a lot, but it never really came through to me until I heard you sing about it. So it's interesting that you combine something I'm scared to do, but do anyway, with something that I really didn't know was a thing. And it's, it has affected a lot of people out there in the business or entrepreneurial world. So that's the first part of this thing. Now, there are two more parts to it. That's asking for help. Now, part two is when people offer to help. And trust me, this one is much harder, because most people's reaction when you offer to help them without them specifically asking you, their reaction is going to be, who the heck does that blankety blank think he or she is? Yeah. I'm doing just fine right here all by myself. Would you please take yourself and go help somebody who needs it? That's the usual response. Would you agree?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So a couple things here. One, you have to remember that it took them more courage to offer to help you than it did for you to ask, or than it would have for you to ask them. So even if you don't think you need their help, please respond to them politely and thank them for the offer. Please don't tear anybody's heads off because they offered to help you. The second part of this is we ask for help so many times during our day and in so many different ways that we don't realize we're doing. So most people, they automatically assume I mean prayer, meditation, law of attraction, vision board, and those things are kind of a way. But what I'm talking about here is most of us will, when we're struggling, usually more so when we're struggling than when we're having lots of successes, we will talk about things without realizing we are talking about them. They will show up in our Facebook comments, in our blog posts, in the words we use in conversations with people in person or on Zoom. Also, there are people in this world who are either intuitive, they are naturally more sensitive to other people's feelings, or who are just really good listeners who will pay attention to what you say and the body language you use when you say it. And these people will think to themselves, that person needs help. I think I know what they need help with, and I could help them. So I'm going to offer. So
Max,
we ask, yes?
the irony right now that you are a blind man talking about body language is awesome. I love this, right? Like you're teaching people who probably can see, right?
Yeah.
About how to understand people at the most fundamental level, right? One of the things that we like, I think we all struggle with it at one point or another, is where we don't pay attention to body language, right? And the fact that you're teaching people and reminding people, this is one of those lessons that people need to learn over and over and over again.
Mhm.
The fact that you're teaching it, I love this. Like the irony is so cool that a blind man is teaching people who can see about how to understand people through body language is remarkable.
Well,
I love
right,
it.
right. Well, I'll have to digest that later. But the basic point is there are people out there who are watching you, they're paying attention to you, and not all of them are 6 years old because as I'm sure you know, kids pay even more attention than adults do. But these people that they're paying attention, either because they know you or because they're just genuinely good people, or they're the kind of people who just like helping other people. There are still a few of those left in the world.
Yeah.
And so they will reach out and offer to help. So when that happens, like I say, the smart thing to do is to accept their help, say thank you, and run with it, because they're going to get you where you're going a lot quicker. But if you can't bring yourself to accept their help, then please just say thank you, be nice to them, and maybe say something like, if it turns out that I realize I need your help, would it be okay if I came back to you? Or if it turns out I need your help, then I will come back to you later. As for body language, obviously I can't do body language, but I can hear when people's voice pitches change or the speed of their words change. Or when you hear people, sometimes all it takes is a sigh or a change in their breathing when you're listening to them. It's like, I don't know what I just said, but they didn't like that. So, so like I said, there are people paying attention. They're going to offer to help. And if you're smart, you'll take it. So that's asking for help. That's accepting help. And then the third part is very important as well. And this is showing gratitude. Now, most people, when I say gratitude, they think I mean saying thank you. Well, that's part of it. That's nice. But what I mean is the best way to say thank you to somebody is to act on their advice. So if I'm putting down in the world that I need help with something, or say a friend of mine notices that I'm doing something wrong and they think they can help me fix it, so they come along and help me. When it's over with, then, or when they tell me what I need to do, then I have to implement their advice. I have to make that part of my life or my business. And by doing it, by actually using what they told me to do, that to me is one of the most important forms of gratitude when we're talking about asking for help and accepting help. And then something I tend to do, even though nobody's ever asked me to do, is I like to let other people know when somebody has helped me. And even if I don't have an affiliate link, even if I'm not getting nothing out of it but the joy of saying, hey, my friend Lorraine fixed a problem on my website that was causing people to click away from my homepage and go read other people's content. Then I'm going to tell people that she done it. I'm going to tell them that they can go to wordingwell.com and maybe she can help them. So saying thank you, implementing the advice, and telling others to show just how much you appreciate what this person did for you, unless they purposely ask you not to. A couple of times people have given me money to take care of expenses, and they basically said, Max, don't mention my name. So other than if I'm told not to, if you do something nice for Max, you're either going to end up on his Facebook page or in his next book. You know, that's just the way it is. That's the way I'm built. So, but like you were saying, business people are really bad at it. Yeah. And they have to work extra hard to take the focus off of themselves and to worry about their business. And the really kind of backwards thing is of the people I have worked with in the past who I've convinced to be more open about themselves when they're doing podcasts, because that's one of the primary things I do to make money is teach people how to be guests and then book them on shows. In the cases where I have convinced a business owner to be more open, maybe not as open as I am, but more, all it does is allow people to connect with them better, make stronger bonds with them as a person over the internet. And more often than not, it's resulted in more business and more referrals to other people rather than less. But that's a hard thing to make business people understand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this all kind of comes back to this idea of interdependence, right? Like,
yes,
we're humans. Like we're supposed to be dependent on each other. Like we've developed that as a skill. And not only because we've practiced it for so long, but it's innate in our nature. It's innate in our biology. Is like we get benefits from having other people around. And so wherever this modern idea, maybe it's not modern, or this idea that we're supposed to be hyper independent creatures, you know, who do everything ourselves, you know, the hustle and grind mentality, it isn't necessarily always beneficial. Like certainly it may work for certain situations, but I struggle with the idea of thinking that you're supposed to, as a business owner, as a human being, because I don't think it's just a business issue, right? There's many people out there that won't ask for mental health help.
This is true.
And so I think it's a human issue, maybe a cultural issue that says I can't ask for help, whether it's because maybe nobody can help me, or nobody understands, or I need to do this, or whatever. You know, if you read a book, you're asking for help. If you,
yes,
you know, if you listen to a podcast, you're asking for help. Like it, just like you said, when you dig into these things that other people have built, you're asking for help in a way that you may not even realize, you know. And I love that you said that, because it's so true. It's like, I thought I was doing my work, you know, after I almost committed suicide all by myself, but I wasn't. I read like 50, 60 books. I was asking for help. I just didn't want to talk to people about it, right? Like I wanted people to talk to me, but I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want to share my story because I was ashamed of it in many ways. So it's, you know, it's a really interesting kind of, you know, cultural thing, I think, that people really struggle with, of like, how do I learn but don't expose my vulnerabilities? You know, it's really interesting.
It is really interesting. And yesterday I was speaking with a gentleman who he also struggles with mental health issues, and he has to deal with them in an employment situation, which makes it even worse, as opposed to working for himself. And we had an hour and a half long conversation, and I realized something about people with mental illness that doesn't apply to me. There's no shame if Max tells somebody on the phone that Max is blind. But there can be shame if you tell somebody on the phone that you have ADHD or that you have anxiety issues.
Right.
You know, when I disclose, and that's the word for those of y'all who aren't familiar with the disability community, the idea is disclosure of your disability and deciding when to disclose, how much to disclose, and to whom to disclose.
Right.
You know, yeah, if I disclose my vision loss, it can get in the way of somebody hiring me, but their questions are going to be, can we physically adapt our business for him to work here? Whereas if you tell somebody that you have a mental illness, their concern is going to be, can we adapt our business at all to work with him? Yeah. So there is a much higher level of reticence and shame connected with mental illness. And true. I just want to let you know how much I have, you know, these are things I'm learning as I'm going, thanks to the podcast network, because, you know, I have a lot of experience with people who have vision loss, but not a lot of experience with people who have intellectual, developmental diseases or mental illness issues. So I'm learning, but yeah, it is so much harder for you, especially in a workplace situation before COVID, you know.
It's, you know, and that's, it's interesting you bring up COVID, you know, like I started this before COVID, but I can speak relatively a lot about that specifically because I talk about suicide, right? I talk about probably one of the things that people find extremely shameful throughout, when I grew up before 2000s, right? People looked at suicide as one of the most shameful things that you could do, and so families wouldn't talk about it. Families wouldn't try to understand any kind of emotional connection between it of like, how do I walk my child through the fact that his father committed suicide? Because one, they didn't understand. Two, they didn't understand the trauma, right? They didn't understand what trauma does to the body or what grief does to people. Like there's so many difficulties within it that there's a lack of competence in the interaction. There's a lack of understanding how to actually talk to me, as a kid, as a 6-year-old kid going through grief and going through trauma. That, it's a very common issue, but still a shameful one, right? And so when we think about it as, okay, I feel like I want to commit suicide, we don't feel like we can have a conversation about it because everyone, we discuss it in a way that it'll get better, or just get over it, or use very specific terminology that discounts how we're actually feeling versus having a conversation and allowing someone to just share their thoughts rather than be stigmatized or something like that. It's a remarkably difficult thing to just verbalize, right? Like I said, like I was asking for help, but I wasn't wanting to be vulnerable. I didn't want to express anything because I didn't know how people would take it. And so
Right.
I spent 5 years doing that. I spent 5 years digging into who I was and what I had gone through, and to the point where, year 6 came and I was like, you know what? I see a lot of people not doing this, right? I see a lot of people not doing the research, but not only that, they're not talking. And so I dug into that. I started expressing myself on TikTok, and, lo and behold, here I am 2 years later with like 600,000 followers. And I'm like, it's not that shameful, right? Like it's just so many people go through it. We just need to have a conversation about it so people can't, stop looking at each other and saying, how dare you even think that? It's like, no, it's common. Let's have a conversation about it so we can understand when you get that way, come talk to someone rather than just internalize it and sit within your box and just eventually, walk yourself out onto the plank all on your own, all on your lonesome and jump off the ship,
Yeah. Well, part of that is rooted in our pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality that goes back to before the industrial age.
Yeah.
When basically if you had problems like that, it was just because you were weak or lazy, or
Right.
you should just get over it. And then of course, it didn't help that I don't know if they've changed their stance on it or not, but forever the Catholic Church had suicide down as a mortal sin to which you could not receive resurrection from, that you could not be buried in a Catholic cemetery,
Right.
if you committed suicide. So I mean,
That's
even
how my
though
dad was, how it was expressed to me about my dad with
right,
my dad's side of the family.
right, even though the Bible says there will be a resurrection of the sheep and a resurrection of the goats, so there'll be a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. Not that this is where we're going to go with that, but it's just one of those things that, when you think about passages like that, you're like, how could they ever get the idea that suicide is a sin that you couldn't be forgiven of?
Matter
Just
of
my 2 cents.
interpretation, right?
I'm sure it is. It's also a matter of tradition in a lot of cases too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is difficult for people to talk about it. And the other thing I'm learning is that the diagnosis is subjective, and the treatment is also generally subjective.
Right.
So it's not like you got a broken bone in your ankle that we can just put a cast on it and in 6 weeks you'll be good. It isn't anywhere close to that. So that makes it also so much harder, because it's difficult for the world we live in now doesn't have a lot of room for subjective. there's a lot of black, white, you know, there's a lot of, if very simple answers are in vogue right now, pretty much all over the world.
Yep.
So the idea that we have to figure out what's to figure out is cannot be easy, you know. And the other thing that occurred to me as we were talking about interdependence is I actually differ with a lot of what's being taught to people that are disabled, especially people with vision loss, because I have experience with that. And you know, you mentioned not having original ideas. The first time I actually heard about interdependence was in a book called Hearing Lessons, Things I Learned in the Dark by Tom Sullivan, who's a very famous musician, performer, documentary filmmaker who happens to be blind. At least that's the way he does his elevator pitch. And I don't want him mad at me because he's got more followers than I do. So, and he talked about it in his book. And the thing is, though, is the whole focus of the rehabilitation approach to people with vision loss is to teach them to be supremely independent, to teach them to find ways to do everything for themselves and not to depend on other people. And that just really has never worked for me. And currently I'm working with an orientation and mobility instructor because I want to improve my cane skills to the point that I can get a guide dog. And they require that you prove you're safe with a cane before they'll give you a dog. So when we first started talking about where my skills were, and I explained how I do things, and she said, "Oh, you're a problem solver." And that was the first time I'd ever talked to a rehab person who called me a problem solver instead of telling me, "You've got a lot to learn. This is going to take a while. You know, I'm going to have to start from scratch with you." And it's like, because I mean, for example, in 2016, I went to New York City on Amtrak. I won what they called the Writer in Residence. I was one of 24 people that year. And I went to New York. I went by myself because nobody else wanted to go with me. And more than once in New York City, I navigated around the city by going from one person's shoulder to another person's shoulder. I didn't know most of them, but they, you know, I would ask, and they were going the same place I was going. So I just followed on behind them. And when I tell sighted people that, they usually cringe. And some even ask me if my mom knows that I did that, you know, but it worked for me because I'm a social person and I make friends pretty easily. Now, I did avoid places that were obviously dangerous parts of the city, but in places that were not obviously dangerous, I'm like, why not do what I would do anywhere else in the world? You know, so that's what I did. But so when I used that example, she said, "Oh, you're a problem solver." So I'm not the kind of person that's going to show up to a conference 2 days early so I can completely map the hotel and the nearby restaurants in my brain and be able to tell you the landmarks before the conference starts. I'm not that kind of person. I'm going to show up on the day you check in. I'm going to go somewhere where people hang out. I'm going to find somebody that's going to be my wingman or wingwoman for the rest of that day. That's how I do it, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, in the vision loss and disability community, there is a very high premium placed on being independent and not much done in the way of teaching interdependence or giving people the freedom to know that it's okay to ask for help, which is totally backwards because the way my family raised me was, you know, there's two things I heard over and over in my life growing up. One was always look in the direction of the person you're talking to, because even if you can't see them, they won't think you're being rude if you're at least looking in the direction.
Right.
The other thing I got told all the time was never be afraid to ask for help, because if you try to do all this stuff by yourself, it's going to take you a lot longer. It's not going to turn out as well. And in many cases, you won't be able to do it at all. So I was raised with totally different encoding, if we're going to use one of the big kids' words. You know, I was like, this was what I was told to do, which is different than what everybody else is told to do. And I'll tell you, it's just really crazy to realize that I, by accident, learned this concept that's capable of helping so many other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a remarkable skill, you know, that like the idea of, you know, I look at it this way of like, as a mental health coach, when I when I step into a first session with someone, the first thing I'm building is a respectful interdependence, right? Where I I need to understand you, and I also need you, to respect that I can't do everything for you, right? But that also means that I'm going to try for you, right? I'm going to give you everything I can, but also remember that I'm a human being that isn't perfect, that isn't going to get all of your, all of your expressions right, all of your vulnerabilities, are you're understanding your whole entire story in one session. I'm not going to get that right, so that, like, one of the first things I say is, like, I can't fix you. I can't help you. I can't do anything for you. I can't solve your problems. All I can do is have a conversation with you. And so there's dependence there, right? Where, you need to have a conversation, and it's a remarkably hard conversation that you've never been vulnerable with anyone else before. These people come to me and they say, I've never told anybody this. I want to tell you. And then they tell me, right? And so they need what I offer. That's very, very simple. They need someone that can listen to them without judgment. And then I need them to understand that I can't solve it. And it's a remarkably freeing experience for them, because they recognize that there's the utmost respect in this interaction, where Dylan's actually listening to me, right? I know he's not going to solve anything right now, but he's just going to give me a place where I can actually be heard for the first time in my life, potentially. And that, like, that idea right there is so under practiced in society. It's under practiced in families, it's under practiced in business, it's under practiced in every position I've ever seen, where when you have a conversation, you create the understanding that you need to be heard, and I'm going to listen, right? And that development, as in a relationship, in any relationship, if that's what you focus on, if you put all your energy there, you're going to create a good relationship, no matter what, even if you don't agree with that person. I'm convinced.
Oh, I agree with you. And what you're talking about there, the reason more people don't do it is the underlying belief or assumption that approaching things that way doesn't get you hired. That admitting you can't fix somebody, admitting you can't solve their problems. Like when
Yeah.
when I talk to somebody about them doing podcast interviews to promote their work, okay, the first thing any author is going to ask me is, if I do this, how many more books can I sell?
Yeah.
That's the first question. Or how many more screenings of my movie can we sell? Or how many more albums? Because that's going to be the first question. And I have to tell them, look, I can teach you how to be a great interview subject. I can get you in front of the audiences. But at the end of the day, I cannot guarantee you that this exercise, that what you're doing, is going to result in more sales, period. And I sure as heck can't put a number on it as to how many more sales you're going to receive by taking this method of gaining exposure for your work. But it's one of those things. I am willing to be honest with somebody, just like you're willing to be honest with somebody, because that's where the relationships start that lead to the kind of patients or clients that you don't have to chase.
Yep.
The kind of people that are going to stay with you over time unless they no longer need what you do. The kind of people who are going to recommend you to their friends and family. That all starts by being willing to say, look, I don't know everything. I can't fix it. I can't do it for you, but I can definitely help you do it. But there's just this whole attitude out in the world. If I say stuff like that, people are not going to hire me.
Yeah.
So,
And they're not gonna they're not gonna pay you. They're not gonna, that can be, that expression of they're not gonna hire me, it can be stretched across so many different, aspects of this.
yeah, they're not going to pay me. They're not going to love me. They're not going to appreciate me. They may even try to harm me in some cases. I'm sure you've seen that among business people. So it is one of those things. Just like, I told you that half the time I do things without really knowing what I'm doing. So 15, 16 months ago, I took the suggestion of some good friends and I started this podcast network for people who have disabilities. And the first thing I have to tell any new potential host is I do not know everything. There are things that I am still learning about my own podcast 6 years later.
Yep.
And I can help you through the process. We can do this together. And if and when there comes a time where I screw something up or where I don't know something and I have to ask somebody else, I will let you know. But, good, bad, or otherwise, you're going to get the best that Max has from the experience that Max has accumulated over the past 6 years. And so far, most people that I've talked to are willing to accept it. But I know there are going to be some who are going to be, you don't have a blueprint, you don't have a checklist, you don't have steps 1 through steps 127. Why should I think that you're in a position to help me? So it's one of those things. So interdependence, it requires a lot of trust. And that's another thing people don't do easily. And, with how little it takes to offend somebody right now, showing trust and having the faith, having courage, to even try to make connections with people is just so risky for so many people. And it shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be. You can meet people without getting into politics, religions, or the Dallas Cowboys, because we hate the Cowboys here in Houston.
I'm an Eagles fan.
well, you'd be good. You'd be good. See, my brother Patrick fell in love with the Eagles during the Donovan McNabb, Donovan McNabb, and what's the name of the coach that's now in Kansas City?
Andy Reid
days.
Yep.
And it was the only time in his life he ever actually thought about buying a jersey of a player. So that's and so he loves the Eagles. So basically in our household, whenever the Eagles do well, everything else around here runs better. So we are also Eagles fans. It doesn't hurt that when you root for the Eagles, you're rooting against the Cowboys 3 times a year. So
pretty much.
You would be good in our household. Well, the only bad thing is my brother, he has something wrong with the electrical stuff in his heart. So he's not allowed to experience stress. So the only way he gets to watch the Eagles is when he knows that they've won by more than say 7 points. And then he gets to watch it on DVR.
Yeah.
Because we want to protect himself, because he's our number one driver. And, he goes out there and works every day to help make our ends meet. And, because of him working his thankless job at Walmart, stocking shelves at night, I get to do a lot of things that I probably wouldn't, because I'd probably be more worried about, is the money I'm going to spend to go to Florida for this conference, is that money maybe I should be spending on the electric bill. So thankfully, he frees me up from a lot of things. He's a really good brother. I hated him when we were kids because we were 7 years apart, and he shouldn't have been there. But we have a real good relationship as adults now,
I feel like that's just the relationship with older siblings of like, yeah, I wish you weren't there.
No, let me elaborate. Me and my younger brother, Michael, are a year and a half apart, and we had pretty much settled all the really important stuff between brothers by the time Patrick came along. So it's kind of like, we didn't need him here. We didn't ask for him here. So, that boy took a lot of abuse. Thankfully, I'm sure the statute has run out on anything I may have allegedly done to him during those days. But, I love him. Back when we were still moving the carnival, he was right there with me with this idea of us against the world, and we're going to do whatever the hell we have to get to next week. So he's a really good brother. We enjoy the same sports teams. We're both professional wrestling fans. I still haven't convinced him to check out AEW yet, for any of y'all who might know what the heck that is. But yeah, it takes trust to create new relationships. And so a lot of people don't do it. So this is another thing I offer that most people aren't going to do. I love meeting new people because it gives me the opportunity to make a new friend and to possibly find a way to help somebody else, or maybe it'll turn out they're the next partner that I need to meet in my life. So if you're thinking, I need to be building some trust with somebody so that so that I can move forward, so I can start asking for help and accepting help, then go to my website, go to theblindblogger.net and use my contact form, or send me an email to justask@theblindblogger.net and say you saw me on Dylan's show and you thought I was either really great or talking out my backside. Either one is fine with me. And say, I thought that I would start building my community with you, Max, and we will go from there. So the one thing I've always really strived for in my business, especially as the blind blogger, is I don't want to be one of those people that the world thinks they have to be ready to spend money. That if they're not ready to hire me, book me, or buy something from my website, that I don't want to hear from them. So I try to make it easy, and I try to let people know. But if you don't have a community of people, then start building a community of people. They can be in person or online or both. Yep. Some of my greatest mentors, some of my closest friends and most trusted advisors are people I've never met in person. Yep. So start with Max. And if it turns out there's something Max can help you with, then he will. If it turns out there's something you need he can't help you with, he'll find somebody who can. If there's something he does that you need that you feel offers value to the point where you should pay Max for it, then we'll worry about that when that happens. So, but yeah, I love helping other people, whether it's starting these new people with podcasts, or teaching people about being great guests, or just sharing my stories so that I can inspire other people. Because sometimes it bothers me, but since it's the truth, I try to just, think it is what it is, which I hate that expression, but I'll use it every so often. For some reason, Max can do the same thing that Dylan is doing, can say some of the same things that Dylan is saying.
I already know what you're going to say.
but there are going to be people who it will affect more strongly because it came from the blind guy.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy being that person. I enjoy sharing my screw ups, my successes, my solutions, the road I've traveled over 14 plus years of being online. I enjoy sharing that stuff because I know that it inspires other people. And especially, like I say, people seem to be even more so because it's coming from a person with a disability, which shouldn't be the case. But as long as it is, I'm going to live with it. Yeah. And my only real problem with inspiring other people, I used to have this problem that I didn't care for people using that word. And then I finally figured out, okay, I'm inspiring people whether I want to or not. So where do you go from there? And a friend of mine, Michael Babcock, he's an adaptive technology guy, and he's also part of the network, and he helps me with some of my tech stuff. He jokingly said one day, he said, well, Max, if people call me an inspiration, I tell them to write me a check and I give them my PayPal address. And so from there, I've decided to tell people, if you're going to call me an inspiration, tell me what one thing or more than one thing I inspired you to do. Yep. Because inspiration without action is meaningless. So if you think Max is a role model, then what did Max model you to do? What did you go out and change today or yesterday, or that you've already taken steps towards changing today for tomorrow? What did you do because you heard Max run his mouth for an hour or so?
Yeah, and you get to learn kind of that, almost those lessons over again. I've been in that very same position of, what did you learn from my book, or what did you learn from my podcast, or what did you learn from my content? Because that's probably the thing that people know the most. And people then teach me in many ways what is most beneficial for them to hear. And when I start putting those patterns together, when I start putting those consistent pieces of content together, I actually start to learn a little bit more about why that is. Why did this one hit when this one is the same thing, but it didn't? But just, shared differently. Like, people are remarkable, and they, people learn in so many different ways and so many different facets that it's so interesting to just listen to how people learn from me, how people learn from you. It's such an interesting thing to do, learning. I think it's one of my most powerful values. It's something that I always fall back on whenever I'm having a hard time. It's, let's go back to the drawing board and figure out, what do I need to learn? Where's my curiosity uh, not shining, and where does it need to shine? But I look at that within other people, and I try and foster it, and I try and develop it. And it's such a fun thing to do with people, to help them enjoy learning again. I love that part. I love that you do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just need to be more introspective of what I'm doing. I need to have a more defined process for evaluating the results and then applying those so that I can make an even bigger impact. So I appreciate that bit of knowledge, that's how you've managed to attract such a large audience to your content.
Yeah, it's been invaluable to me. It's like TikTok makes it super easy. Like you sit there, you make a video, and then the comments come flooding in. And there's videos where I have a couple thousand comments, and I'm looking at these and I'm learning from people like, wow, this is the one that really made a difference in my life. And then I'll have people message me and tell me which ones impact them. And you get this opportunity to step within someone's mind, that because of the piece of content that you made. Well, and for me specifically, this is deep content. I talk about suicide, I talk about mental health, I talk about all these really difficult things to normally have a conversation with people about. And people dig into themselves, and because you made the content and because you were vulnerable, they share with you some of these really intimate and difficult and complex pieces of information about what they've been through and what happens to them and why they are the way that they are. And you get to really develop an understanding of people, because you get that at scale, right? You get 47 people that went through the same experience, and you're like, I didn't know it was this common, right? And I like to kind of look at it as a game of numbers, right? If I get 1 million likes, or I'm sorry, 1 million views, I'm going to get probably 100,000 likes, right? 10% rule. And then 10% of that 100,000 will probably comment, right? I might get 10,000 comments. And of those 10,000, maybe 10% of that is going to send me a DM or share my stuff. And so like, it's probably more like 1% on the back end of like those DMs, like 1% of people will probably shoot me a message. But I mean, that's kind of how TikTok works. But I think that kind of works overall in the grand scale of like social media, and even in person. 1,000 people might see me, 10 to 100 are actually going to come up to me and have a conversation with me, or engage with me, and so on and so on. And that's always really interesting, is that you'll never know the full gravity of your impact, because most people don't say anything to you, but they're watching.
Yeah. Well, I don't have that kind of impact with my social media, I'm not on TikTok, but
maybe my you should
YouTube, be. Oh, please, let's not go there. I got more things that I want to be doing now. So I don't know. I tell you what, maybe you will do me a favor, okay? Can you cut out a clip or two from our conversation and share it on TikTok for me, and kind of get an idea of what kind of response we get? Is that something that's possible?
I think so. I think you've got a couple of gold gems in here that we can drop it like it's hot, see what happens.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
And see whether, I tend to think I'm too long-winded for TikTok. I think I would have to really work on I think I would almost have to approach my TikTok videos as giving a speech.
You might have to learn a little bit. Is that what you're saying, Max?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Hey, just last week I was completing an application for the Google podcast creation program. They do it every year, and this year they're looking for people who have an existing podcast but aren't doing as well with their podcast as they would like to. And in order to complete it, I had to come up with an audio reel. So I actually took clips out of 2 or 3 of my past interviews and put them into one file. And I don't edit. I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
But I was able to figure it out just enough to, to include my intro and a few clips from past interviews that I thought were really good. And so even if they don't eventually select me, because I would love to have the training and the networking opportunities that come along with them accepting you into their program, the fact that, it's just one more thing that I was able to do, because it's like, well, I pretty much have to do this if I want to do that,
Yeah.
Just like I had to figure out how to build a website if I wanted to sell carnival rides.
Yeah.
So yeah, now you've got me thinking, other than this, you've got me thinking, what before this was the last time I really learned anything new in a while? And so
I tend to have that. I have that effect on people sometimes. I think, what's funny about this is, like, you've been talking about video this whole time. You've been talking about kind of how to sell things, how to do what you do. Like, you've been doing all of the things, Max, that you need to know to do TikTok. The only thing you need to understand now is TikTok itself, and how to take all of that stuff that you already know how to do and just drop it into TikTok the right way. That's it.
Okay. So is this course going to cost me a lot of money?
I'm still honestly in the process of building that course.
All right. Well, let me know when you need a beta subject. And
right. Right. I will.
Because I'm good for recommendations and testimonials and that sort of stuff. So
absolutely. I think, I don't have an affinity for any specific social media. I think it's all their own little micro pools of people, right? And
yes,
and I kind of look at it how, I got these ideas from Gary Vaynerchuk. Like everyone's like micro pools. You got TikTok, you got Twitter, you've got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You got everyone has their own thing. Like, certainly people use Twitter and YouTube, or TikTok and Facebook, or TikTok and Instagram, but they all operate differently. And so I look at it, and I'm kind of developing this idea of, like, how do you develop an understanding of evergreen content kind of idea throughout all platforms, right?
Right.
The trick isn't to just develop content. It's to understand, what is your brand, what is your message, what are you trying to actually get to people, and then it is to, what's the platform right now that has the most organic reach? What, like, free? How can you reach people for free right now? Well, guess what? TikTok is it, right?
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt, TikTok is the #1 way where, if you're a business, if you're an influencer, if you're just a person trying to reach the most people for free, TikTok's the way to go, because it can do that. It can reach, I've got a friend that she started on TikTok last November, and she's passed me for followers. She's got like 750,000 followers in what? That's 6 months, less than 6 months. And it's absolutely incredible, we did a podcast like 2 months ago, and she's gained like 200,000 followers since then.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, my first experience with TikTok is about 6 weeks back. I had posted this song I wrote called "If You Don't Ask" on LinkedIn, and one of the people that I've been working with is from Kazakhstan. He's developed a device to help people teach themselves Braille, and so he's working with visually impaired people in Kazakhstan and Bulgaria and east and parts of Russia. So he shows the videos that I recorded for my YouTube channel where I'm singing. He started showing those to his clients, and his clients started recording videos of themselves playing musical instruments or singing and sending them back to me. And about 6 weeks back, one of his clients took the audio and they recorded themselves playing their guitar and combined their guitar with my music and posted it to TikTok. And in less than 20 hours, it had over 1,000 views. And I was like, maybe I am doing something wrong. But then I thought, I'm not really a TikTok type person. So I kind of said, no, I don't know. But yeah, I was like, this person has, has more TikTok followers than I have Twitter followers. And in a very short period of time, that video or audio, or because I'm not sure exactly what media it was in, but had, well over 1,000 views. And I think the most views I've ever gotten is I recorded myself singing "The River" by Garth Brooks at the park near Niagara Falls, and that one got over 2,000 views over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's the most I've ever. So I have to think about it. My real question about TikTok is it one of those things like Instagram where you pretty much have to do it from a mobile device?
You not anymore. You can actually do you can upload videos via desktop now.
Okay, well that's good.
The only thing I'm curious about, because I've never done it, I don't know, because TikTok has this sound option, right? Like or the sound situation where you can implement sounds and use sounds as kind of a way to increase your reach. I don't know how that works on a desktop compared to mobile device. Mobile device, they make it super easy. You can make your content and then drop a sound into it, and it makes it viral, right? Like the sounds are certainly one of the pieces that make it viral. But
okay.
I mean, that's certainly something that can be dug into and understood.
Right. So maybe it's a case of where, when I do things online, quite often I have to switch devices depending on what website or app I'm dealing with. So
Yep.
I have a Mac, I have a Windows computer, and I also have an iPhone and a tablet. So depending on what it is. So just that first thought, it sounds like maybe I could upload the videos from the desktop, even if I have to go onto my phone or something to actually do the stuff that makes them compelling. So that'll be something I'll find out. And I'm assuming it's okay for me to connect with you on TikTok as I'm going to, if I decide to try this experiment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd recommend it.
See, we're basically sliding into this whole interdependence thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no fear that your audience is going to think less of me because I'm asking for your help, because for one, it's my thing, but for two, you are the first person I've run across who actually is the person I should be asking.
Yeah, right. And what's great about this is like why I offer is 100% selfish, right? It's and not the selfish that I think some people might say. It's you have an ability to reach people and share your message and help people in a way that I can't. But that's my goal, right? My goal is 100% to help people develop their emotional intelligence, their mental health focus, their, however people can help themselves understand things, right? You have a way of speaking to them that I can't, right? And maybe it's because you're blind, maybe it's not, I don't know. But whatever it is that helps people help themselves or how you help them, that makes me happy, right? Yeah. Like it's 100% selfish. I love it. I'm happy for it. You're happy for it because you're then impacting those people too. It's all good no matter what.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting how the conversation has changed in the last 3 or 4 years to where being selfish or being concerned with oneself is actually becoming a good thing. And there are a lot of coaches now who have come around to the idea that if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't renew yourself, then you can't continue to help other people.
Right.
So in that case, being selfish is almost a requirement in order to continue being selfless.
Yeah.
They work together in harmony, really. So, like you said, your goal is to help as many people as possible. And if Max can do that in a way that Dylan can't, then the smart thing is for us to do our things side by side or as a team, or just to support each other as we're each doing our own thing. That's what makes sense for the most people. So
I would love to see you get 1 million followers before me, right? Like that's
I thought you were already at something 100,000 though.
Well, you got some work to do then. I'm just saying, right? But like I love I love that when, when I had the conversation with Lauren 2 months ago, her podcast came out, with me, a couple weeks ago, and I think she was like 20,000 followers less than me. So like 550 or 540 at the time. And then now, like 2 months later, she's got like 200,000 more than me. Right. That's phenomenal. I love that. Like that, because one, that means I'm connected to this person that has a gift to speak to people that need to be spoken to,
Yeah.
and for people to be vulnerable and understand what they're struggling in an even better way. And now I'm a part of that, right? And then those people that find her and are like, she's awesome, Google her name and find my podcast and listen to her. They also get the knowledge that me and her both connected together on, right? And so,
Yeah.
it's the same with you. Like, I would love to see you get 1 million followers, because I mean, you're just going to speak to them in a way that is necessary. And then they come to this conversation and they're going to be like, this is great. This is this is phenomenal, right? It's only good, like I love having the discussion about selflessness and selfishness, because I don't look at them as good or bad either way. I look at them as just words, right? We as humans like to add connotation and say selflessness is a great thing. Well, I can tell you a lot of different experiences that I've heard recently that do not make it a good thing, right? If you're in an abusive
No, you can.
relationship and you're being selfless, that's not fun, right? you
Yeah.
know?
And how many entrepreneurs have been harmed over the last few years because they were told to provide a lot of value for free, and many of them provided so much value for free that there was nothing left to sell.
Right. Right. I mean, you have to be balanced in how you look at selfishness and selflessness. It can be
Yeah.
both bad and good, either direction. And
I
you
think
have
you
to be
need.
aware of when to use each in the right situation.
Yeah, I think maybe you need to come up with a new term and see selfless and selfish as parts of that term. Kind of like how, in fiction, in the Star Trek universe, they have matter and antimatter, and the two of them together allow the ship to go at incredible speeds.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if, maybe there's a new term that's kicking around in your head, or that will occur to you after that you can say that this is the new word that selfless and selfish are equal parts of.
That's a very interesting thought. I'll write
I could
something
see
down.
it. I could see a TED talk in there.
I could too. Absolutely. I've actually been thinking about this.
Well, so you know how you talked about how people say things that you're known for. One of the things I'm known for is bringing out things from the host or the guest that they haven't talked about to a lot of other people before they met me. So,
Well, I have talked about this a lot, like
all right.
my podcast. Oh God, I am that echo. I echo myself a lot, and I say, we talk about trust, we talk about interdependence. Like, I've talked about
Yeah.
all of these things. I
Yeah.
just like talking about them with new people and developing and honing those ideas, right? And so
Yeah.
it may seem original in some ways because I've developed the idea, but realistically, I have hundreds of people's perspectives kind of flowing within these ideas. And so I very much look at my clients. I look at the people I've had on my podcast. I look at my comment section. I've had hundreds of thousands of people help me develop ideas for people. And so I'm just the messenger. I'm just a dude paying
Okay.
attention, giving the world the best ideas to move forward together. That's all I want.
Okay. Yeah.
You
Well, right now you have me wondering if Max has not been creating has not really been connecting with his own audience, because I don't have as many comments as I would like. I haven't had as many conversations with the people who follow my work as I would like.
Max.
There's this. Yeah, I know where you're going, and I'll get there in just a second.
Well,
there's probably a couple of dozen that I hear from all the time. But yes, I understand that as a podcaster, as a blogger, as an author, 99% of your audience will never tell you that. They will never say word one to you. I understand that, but it just, listening to you talk, it seems like you have far more interaction with your community than I do, and that's something I plan to see what I can do to improve upon.
Here's a thought, though. So the first question I ask is why, and you're a very personable person, you're very easy to talk to, I would ask the question, why, almost understanding the answer already, right? You've never.
Well, if you know the answer already, then let me know, because I try to make it easy for people to to comment, to connect with me, but apparently maybe I'm saying it or doing it wrong.
Well, one, I think, and I'm going to sell you a little bit more on TikTok. Maybe TikTok's your way to do that. but the other thing is, like, I would just look at how you operate, right? Like, one of the biggest places you're on is online, right?
Yes.
But you're blind, right?
Yes.
So maybe there's this piece of it where people just think that you can't read comments.
Oh,
like, it could
God.
be.
No.
Simple.
That actually makes sense, because I can't tell you now that you've brought it up, I can't tell you how many times I have gotten a direct message from somebody on social media, the first time they ever write me, and I reply back and they're like, well, how are you reading my message?
Right.
That happens more on Facebook than it does on LinkedIn or Twitter, but it still happens. And of course, I think LinkedIn has been helped because I finally threw an emoji up in my profile, in my banner, so that it's got the image of the guy with the white cane. I think that's kind of helped me a lot on LinkedIn. Plus, it's generally more of a professional community than a social community. But now that it's one of those things. Now that you say, and another thing that comes to my mind is, we all get a lot of spam email, and some of it comes from being signed up by people you signed up to, by who's basically sharing your email with everybody they ever met. One of the things I get in my inbox quite often, I always get a grin when it happens, is somebody, usually a woman, but sometimes a man, will send me an email, and the first email will have graphic photos in them according to the subject line. And I'm like, if the email address is justask@theblindblogger.net. So either you didn't bother to read, or you didn't understand, or maybe you think it's just a cool nickname. I'm not sure, but I get a lot of emails where I'm like, doesn't this person realize? So, you may be onto something. That may be a question.
I feel
that may be a discussion I need to start on one of my social media channels and see what happens. That's good.
If there was ever a recommendation, like if you do get on TikTok, I think you should do this. If you make this video, you say, I'm blind, or something of the sort of, like, you know what?
No, I'm cool with blind.
I can't see. I'm blind, but I want to squash a rumor right now. I can read your comments, and this is how I do it, right? Like, or, and offer people, because people on TikTok are super real, right? Like, that's one of the differences between like it and Instagram or Facebook or other places. It's like, people want to know the weird and dirty and, real and tough and taboo stuff. And so they're willing to, like, sit down. And if you kind of sell the hook of, like, I'm blind, but I can read your comments, and here's how I do it, right? And then you tell them how, and then you share how, and you're like, my brother reads them, or my computer system reads them, or whatever, and you do a video like that, and people are going to watch that, right? And then now you have an engagement of, like, now ask me all of your other questions about this, and then you lead them. That's the beauty of TikTok, is like, you can do replies to comments, you can video reply to comments, you can video reply to duets.
So it sounds a little like Instagram, except Instagram doesn't really give me much in the way of a desktop option.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Instagram, and it's all video, it's not picture.
All video. Well, that's good, because usually video has audio, but and that could be something else. But I tell you one thing that I will mention right now that gets in the way of reading people's comments are emoticons in their profile. Because some people, they've got half a dozen emoticons in their profile. And every time my computer goes to read me their next comment, it first has to tell me slice of lemon, umbrella, volcano exploding, Ferris wheel seat, champagne. It has to read all of that stuff every time I read a new comment. So I've that's one of those things. The other,
you could shame people on TikTok for using emoticons.
I'll tell you another one that's in a similar vein is I understand why people use the genders on LinkedIn, and I guess eventually it's going to come to other places too. I understand why people do it, but again, it's another thing my computer has to read to me before, and because I put up with this for myself, I'm actually thinking of redoing my banner on my LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, not only does it read you their emoticons and their name, but it also reads their headline. And my headline, as you know, is quite long.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of re-editing my headline just because it's starting to aggravate me when I go to reply to people's comments. And maybe put more in my about section and less in my headline, kind of a situation. But yeah, those are things that they just get in the way when you're using a screen reader, because you can't just tell it to stop reading the emoticons. When you tell it to stop reading, it stops reading wherever it's at. And
yeah.
so yeah, those are some things I guess we could do on TikTok if I want to get known as the blind guy who's doing rants. I guess maybe, I don't know.
That would be,
but
that'd be funny. You could, and that's what I would do is like, you're such a funny guy to have a conversation with, because you're real, you're authentic, you're just super genuine. You don't care, right? Like, you know, it's not you don't care.
I don't know not to care, I think, is the problem. I'm kind of right. I don't know if you ever watched the TV show, but Betty White was on that show Golden Girls for like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And on that show there was a character named Sophia Petrulla, and she was the oldest one on the show. She she not only had mental problems on the show, she had mental problems in real life, suffered from Alzheimer's later in the run. But on the show, her character description was that she had suffered a stroke, and the stroke had removed the filter that keeps her from saying things other people do not. And I kind of think of her when people say, you know, Max, you just don't care. Because I tell you, I've had this conversation with lots of coaches over the years, and it's happened probably 5 or 6 times, where a coach will go, you know, Max, I know your brand is authenticity, but could you like be a little less authentic? I've gotten that one several times. You know, it's like, Max, couldn't you frame things in more positive language? And I'm like, that takes more effort, you know?
I had a client that looked at me after their first session, was like, I've been through 26 years of therapy, and I can honestly say that, you know, Dylan, you are an absolute wrecking ball of perspective, because I've learned more in 1 hour about myself than I have in 26 years of therapy. And, you know, I was like, this was like the first time I ever heard this, because she was one of my first few clients, and I was like, is that a good thing? And she's like, yes, it's a very good thing. It's a hard thing, but it's a very good thing. I think if you're a coach and you're respectfully honest with people, it's a very good thing. If you're harshly honest, it can be a very bad thing. It can work, but it can also be pretty bad.
Right. But back to the things that keep us from being successful. Don't you feel there are far too many coaches who are more worried about having the regular sustainable income than they are about helping the person solve their problem?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You should. And I look at this, and because, you know, we may be having a conversation about coaches, but I think about it in therapists, right? Because a lot of therapists, you know, and this is just my understanding through my clients' eyes, right?
Right.
The people that come to me because they went to therapy, they went to psychologists, psychiatrists, they went to all of the people with big letters after their names, right?
Yeah.
None of it worked, right? And it was because these people didn't know how to talk to them. These people didn't know how to earn trust. They used their academics versus their emotional intelligence of listening to someone, or they placated these people for long periods of time without any success, because they didn't know how to be honest with people. And a lot of people are looking for that personal relatability in me that therapists can't do, like, because that's somehow
not the way they're raised.
They can't do it, right? Like, there's rules against that. And so it's a really, I shouldn't say rules, but there's this whether it's
There
written
are
or unwritten.
taboos.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you know, professionally, you're not supposed to share your personal experiences, and it's like, why the fuck not? Like, you should you should know you should know how to express your, you know, your relatable stories for that person, not necessarily to tell all about, like, I share my stories, but I don't do it because I want to share my stories. I do it because, okay, Max, you're struggling with this situation. This is how I did it. But then here's how this might apply to you, right? Like, I don't just share it because I want a voice. Like, I'm sharing it because you might get value from this. And when you learn how to tell your stories and you learn how to connect it to people, that's remarkably powerful. And if you don't do that, you're just missing out on this potential for you know, incredible, an incredible ability to connect with people. And I think, you know, whether it's therapists or coaches, that ability to just help people is a hard thing to learn. And sometimes I think it's quite an innate skill that you kind of have. I think you and me, like, clearly we do well for our clients and helping people. Um, comes quite natural for us, right? We had to learn it pretty quick, right? You know, both of us did in our own separate ways. That's the remarkable part.
Yep, we learned it because we really didn't have a choice not to learn it.
Yep.
Or I guess you could always say that you had a choice not to learn it, but I mean, that's really not somewhere I ever thought about going. So,
Right.
I've often joked with people. There are two things that I think make me really successful. One is I'm not smart enough to be scared. I've done a lot of things without knowing what the heck I was doing, and without getting stuck in the middle because I didn't know that they were supposed to be harder. I actually think I'm having trouble finishing my second song because the first song went so easily that it's kind of like I don't expect it to ever be that easy again. So, you know, so I'm not smart enough to be scared, and I don't know how to quit. And those two things together have made me pretty successful.
That's, you know what? Like, that sounds an awful lot like how I am. So I feel like when you put those two things together, it's remarkably powerful. And it's also remarkably good for you sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and there have been some great experiences. There have also been some horrible experiences that I learned great things from later.
Yeah.
That both started because I didn't have the good sense to say no to something. You know, decided I was going to do it and just went ahead and did it. I mean, when I went off to New York with that writer's prize that I won in 2016, they only provided the train ticket. They didn't provide the money for lodging or housing or food or warm clothing for a guy who lives in Texas. And I decided I was going to go before I even had the rest of the money to go, and the rest of the money showed up. It was a great story, but you know,
Got a little lucky on that one.
yeah, some good things happen. A couple years later, I go to New York, Philadelphia, New York, and I was going to go to Pittsburgh after that, and got sick while I was traveling. Ended up I was broke, sick to the point most people couldn't understand my words, and about to be homeless in New York City. And you know, thanks to my community, thanks to the fact that I just kept reaching out to people until I found those two right people in my community, who one of them bought me a hotel room and the other one bought the other half of my train ticket back home to Houston, Texas. You know, who knows what might have happened. That was one of those experiences where when that one was over, I was like, okay, Max, you can't do this again. So my answer to that particular, you know, situation was, okay, from now on, Max, or at least for the next, I didn't say for now on, I said for the next year, because I think if I had said from now on, I wouldn't have done it. I think it's very difficult to commit to something for the rest of our lives. So I said for the next year, I'm not going to be involved in any opportunities that require me to leave Houston, where they don't pay my expenses, a fee, or both.
Yep.
And the interesting lesson I learned from that was, is as soon as I made it clear that I was not going to travel on my own money anymore, opportunities started showing up here in the Houston area, and opportunities started showing up where people actually funded my experiences. So it's you know, so there've been some great things that have happened. There's been some horrible things that happened that I later learned from, but most of those wouldn't have happened if I had played it safe and said, I'm going to do what I should do or what I'm expected to do or what would be easy. So I don't like to think of it as fearlessness, because that's just, that word just is all kinds of wrong. But I have a really good friend, Adrian Smith, who says the problem that I have with these situations is that I spent all those years dragging a small family carnival around Texas and the rest of the country, or at least the bottom third of it. And I have so many experiences where me, either by myself or through the efforts of the rest of the family, managed to just find a way to get through whatever the calamity of the day or week was. And so to her point, I have so much mental memory built up of finding ways out of difficult situations that I would put myself in difficult situations because that was what I knew, that was what I was comfortable with, and that was what was fun.
Yep.
To the point that I'm going in 2 weeks, I'm going to the American Foundation for the Blind's leadership conference. I'm one of their mentors this year. And I actually wrote on Facebook to a good friend of mine. I said, you know, I'm really not excited about this trip because there's almost absolutely no element of risk involved. They're paying for everything, the tickets and the rooms and everything has already been purchased. I mean, unless something happens to the plane, which almost never happens, there's really like, you know, there's like no element of risk. There's no adventure built into this. So I'm going to have to create my adventure while I'm there, hopefully by meeting with somebody from one of their sponsors or one of the other attendees that, you know, we can collaborate on something going forward. But yeah, I have a lot of experience overcoming bad situations. Most people think I mean my vision loss when I talk about that, but I just mean, you know, in business, first the carnival and then the websites. And I like to remind people that one of the reasons I do what I can is because I have a lot of experience of finding myself on my ass looking up at where the sky should be. both literally and figuratively. You know, it's like I have made a lot of mistakes, a lot of disasters, catastrophes, and outright failures. But when you have a history of just finding a way to respond from those or recover from those, then, you know, when you have something like I did in New York later in life, it's like, well, I know there has to be a way out of this somewhere. I don't know what it is right this second. Well, we're going to keep looking for it till we find it. And if I can't find it, then I'm going to ask somebody else to help me find it. So thankfully, due to years of my practicing interdependence, I had people that I'd never met in person, one from California and one from San Antonio, Texas, who spent their hard-earned money and didn't want any recognition for it to get me back to Houston safely. And so it's you know, like I say, it was a good lesson, interdependence, you know, proving that it works, and not intentionally, of course. I didn't set out to put myself in that spot, but you know, great proof for interdependence, and then also the idea that we can and have to learn from these situations we put ourselves in. So yeah, thankfully, I have resolved all of this for the most part because my friend Emily Trepanier, who's a blind snowboarder from Canada, who was the first new podcaster on the podcast network, she's like, yes, I can introduce you to her at some point if you want to, but she doesn't do interviews during race season. So
it's fair.
But the thing is, you know, whenever I complain to her about not really having anything crazy on the horizon, because like she wants me to come to Canada and go snowboarding with her, and I'm like, I don't want to go snowboarding. It's like right up there with whitewater rafting and jumping out of a plane with a parachute in my mind. But I mean, I'm a big, tall, uncoordinated guy that would be on a small board going downhill at speed. You know, I mean, so I'm not really. But she's like, Max, what you have to do is you have to realize that the same thing you would tell anybody else. You have to realize that your podcast and your podcast network especially is your current and future adventure. And I was like, you know, I could really be mad at you for using my own words against me like that, because what we were talking about earlier. A lot of things I've done because I didn't know what they were, or I had to do them, or because I had a sense of wonder about them and made them an adventure. So she's like, yeah, Max, I know you'd rather be traveling. I know you'd rather be speaking. I know you'd rather be finishing the next book. She said, but right now, you have to see your podcast network and the people that you're helping, both the hosts and their audiences that you're helping, as your next big adventure. And so I do that. I think about the day when the WYE will have a conference or be publishing books for our hosts, or we'll be selling T-shirts that actually sell a lot of them and make somebody some crazy money. Like when you see these the wrestlers, they come out with a new T-shirt and 48 hours later they've sold hundreds of thousands of dollars of merchandise, kind of a thing.
Right.
So that's what I'm choosing to do at this point. But if you hear that Max has gotten an offer and he's taken off for the UK or Australia or something, it might be true.
Yeah. That's how I look at my podcast right now. It's like, it's not necessarily the podcast itself that is the adventure. It's the people, right? Like, yeah. I looked at your name on the schedule and I was like, man, I wonder how this is going to go. This is going to, every day, like I meet someone new that has such an incredible story. I mean, your story, like just today, like this has been, it's going on 2 hours now. This has been an incredible conversation. It's been fun. It's been enlightening. It's been, we're laughing with each other. We're digging into really interesting conversations. We're learning from each other. That is such an adventure. And again, this is why I do this. It's such a selfish reason, but it's the most important selfish reason, because then I get to learn from you. And then I get to share your story with a client someday that has some kind of issue. And all of a sudden I hear in the back of my head, okay, I've got a story I've got to tell when I met this guy named Max, and this guy that has built this network because of this, right? And talk about you, and then, I look at, this is episode 51. And what's interesting about this, and it'll be interesting for people who listen to the podcast consistently, I didn't record episode 50 yet, right? I skipped one because episode 50 is going to be very special for me. And it's, it's going to make me kind of emotional here because it's talking about something that's very important to me. It's my baby, right? When I was 25 years old, I was ready to die. Like, I was ready to give up on the world, give up on life. And I never saw what I have now. I never saw what I could have been, like I didn't have any clue I would have this beautiful wife, this beautiful stepson, and I have a baby coming in June. But episode 50 is going to be dedicated to her and me sharing, give me a second. Me sharing the story of her, me sharing, this piece of it. And that's the most beautiful thing. I didn't expect to do this. This is interesting. Me sharing this whole experience of getting to this point in my life. And I'm saving that one. I'm saving episode 50 for a little bit closer. Clearly it's quite emotional. It's quite powerful in my life right now, but she is beautiful, because of so many things. And I want it to be a special kind of episode for people to recognize why they should keep going, and just why, your adventure is going to suck. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. But when you realize just how important it is to keep going, you have to. And even now, I'm sitting here crying with a person I've never met before. And I'm going to continue on. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep sharing. I'm going to keep having this conversation with him because, Max, I assume you're like, keep going, dude. And
I feel honored to be a part of this. So yes, absolutely keep going.
And exactly. And I get to share this with people like yourself, important people like yourself that have an equal understanding of that concept of beauty that so many people are either lacking or don't understand or have a recollection of, like we do. And I think it's really just our job to continue sharing our experiences and sharing the experiences of each other so that we can help people figure out how to look at this world with beauty. And what's ironic about that is I use the word look, and Max can't do that, but he still does it with his own, I think in his own way, right? He hears the beauty, he feels the beauty. And I don't want to put words in your mouth so you can kind of explain that side of things, but that's what I want. I want people to be able to understand how to experience, maybe is a better word, this world, and realize just how important it is to feel our way through it rather than just, put our mental state behind in the back of our mind and shut it out for the entirety of our existence and work our fingers to the bone. And, but yeah, I haven't recorded episode 50, and I find it really, really interesting that, I decided to skip that and go right to 51 because I made that decision this morning before we started this discussion. But I decided I'm going to make that very special for her. And I even forgot what we were talking about, but you go ahead and reel me back in if you want to.
Well, I've got no reason to do that. I mean, I think that what you did was really important there, and it's who you are. It's how we connect with people. If we refuse to let people see us as we really truly are, we can never make a connection with them in person, much less through a podcast recording or a Zoom call. So I was sincere. I feel truly honored that you actually went to that place during our conversation. So and as far as beauty goes, I do appreciate it in my own way. A lot of it has to do with the tone of the voice, the smell, the energy of the person. Sometimes, you can just tell how vibrant a person is by the tempo of their movements. And a few years ago, I was on a plane, and the flight attendant decided to show me how to put on the flotation vest. And I've been flying for a long time. Nobody ever did that. And at the time, I was wondering why nobody ever did that. So, but afterwards, the flight attendant, I asked the flight attendant, I said, well, would you take a picture of this? Because this is kind of part of my brand, stuff, stuff like this. So she did. And as I'm walking up the jetway, I don't remember who instigated it, but we shared a nice hug on the jetway, and the other person on that crew walked up and said, "She's beautiful," but then you already knew that, didn't you? And I just felt like she was saying or trying to say what you were just trying to say, that that beauty is experienced in a lot of different ways. Yeah. So and a lot of it is just appreciating the character, the heart that is the person that you're speaking with, or that you are sharing the space with.
Yeah. Absolutely. We could probably talk a couple hours on just that topic specifically. I feel, but I think we've had a good long conversation. So I think we should get to your closing question and then call it a day. That's exactly what I was thinking. I figured, we've hit 2 hours, so I feel like it's probably a good time to reel it in. So
Yeah.
here's the question. If there was one message you could leave the world, Max, what would it be?
I would say that we are all capable of so much more than we think we are, of so much more than our friends or family think we are. And it's really important to try a lot of different things, to experience a lot of different things. And that includes people as well as events and experiences. Because if we focus in on just one type of experience or just one type or group of people or one profession, that television keeps us from enjoying so many more opportunities. It keeps us in, the focus can be very healthy for you, but it can also rob you of so many opportunities. And I say this because for the longest time, all I ever wanted to do was be part of the carnival business. But it was only after I could no longer do that as a profession that I figured out that I could create a website, that I could record a video, that I could do a podcast. So many of these other things happened because I accepted that the one thing I was focused on was no longer an option to myself. And just for the first few years, it was almost every day or every week that I would do something small or large that I had never done before, or tried before, or even thought about trying before. So I'd say that's one of the most important things is don't be so focused in on your current goal, your current job. Try a lot of new things and leave yourself open to something even better, even sweeter, even more powerful than what you already have in your life.
Well, I love it. And Max, I just want to thank you for joining me and having this conversation and going everywhere that we went today. I think it was, this is honestly one of my favorite conversations so far in 50 episodes, 51 episodes, obviously.
Well, I appreciate you too. And most hosts are doing shows the way they've been told they should be doing them. So there aren't a lot of hosts that give their guests the opportunity to have this much time with them, to the freedom to go in different places than maybe they would have gone if they had stuck to a script, or if they had stuck to their preconceived ideas as to what the subjects they should talk about are. So really it starts with you being willing to do your podcast in a way most others won't, and to give your guests the freedom to talk and to listen and to realize things, to have aha moments of their own as well, instead of just sharing them. It's really all on you. This is not something I get to do very often. It's a real pleasure. And just so you know, I started doing podcast interviews in 2013 because I didn't have a way to meet people face to face. I knew there had to be some way I could connect with more people and sell some more carnival rides. And was doing that before I became the blind blogger, and just basically adapted interviews to my work as a coach, a mentor, a host, etc. So I've been doing it for 9 years, and really without people like you, most people would have never heard of me. They wouldn't know who the heck Max Ivey is. The blind blogger, or what's your excuse, would mean nothing to them. So, talk about interdependence at its core. I want to thank you for the opportunity, and for the fact that you are another really important part of my journey and my story. And so I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you and your role in my continuing to do whatever it is we say I'm doing here.
Well, you better start doing it on TikTok at some point, but absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, at least you didn't go where most of my friends would have said, Max, you really need to be doing TikTok. And they would go, they would follow that up by going, aren't you the no excuses guy? What's your excuse? Why aren't you doing TikTok, Max? Why? what is your BS reason, Max? Why are you not doing, so at least you didn't call me yellow or chicken or use my own catchphrase against me. So I'm good with it.
I don't need to. You'll get there.
And the thing is, it could end up turning out to be just like you said. It could be that I just haven't found my tribe or my jam yet. Just like I've told you about my client Adriana, who's been with me a while. The other day I was talking to her about how I sing, and I've written these songs because it's fun. It helps me re-energize when I'm working. And her response was, Max, how do you know that your music isn't what will eventually make you famous? And I don't have an answer to that question, although I get lots of messages from quote songwriters who tell me that neither one of my songs are good enough. So I just accept help from the ones that volunteer to help, and I ignore the rest of them, thank goodness. But so who knows? It could be one of those things that, that the thing I have been avoiding on purpose for a long time now could be the thing I needed. So, and the really scary thing is if it turns out you're right, I'm going to have to come back on your show and tell people you were right. And that's not fun. I can do it, but I don't enjoy doing it.
I'll make it easy for you.
We'll record a TikTok video together at that point. Okay, so how many followers do you have, so I know what the bar is if I choose to accept this crazy challenge?
Well, let me look, because I don't look all that often. I know it's somewhere in the 580s.
That's good news. That's good news to hear that you don't look at it all that often. That's encouraging.
581,400.
581. Okay.
So there's your bar.
That's a big one. My YouTube channel has 216 followers 6 years later. So, but who knows? Maybe it's TikTok, and maybe it's, challenging myself to do some editing that I've never really wanted to do before. And we will see what happens. And who knows? Maybe you'll get to be able to say, I made Max famous. Y'all know that, right? I made the blind. I know he was the blind blogger before I met him, but I made him famous. So we'll all see what happens with that. But I will at least check it out and see what I find out about the desktop or laptop version of it, because I do much better with my laptop than I do with the device. Plus, most all of my video is on one or the other of my laptops. I don't have a lot of video on my devices.
Yeah, it would be cool. It'd be cool to see you.
All right. Well,
yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, I will check it out. And I don't know why I'm still talking about this. There's a comedian from the golden age of Red Skelton, and when he was on radio, he used to do the voices of a bunch of different characters on his show. And one of the characters on his show was just known as Junior, the mean little kid. And every week, Junior would have a choice between doing something bad or wicked that he'd get punished for, or not doing it. And invariably, he'd get to the part in that section of the show where Junior's character would go, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? Should I not? And he would always say, I don't know what I'm standing here arguing about. We both know I'm going to do it anyway. So that's kind of the way I do a lot of things. I may not want to do them. I may stall a bit before I do them, but more often than not, if I haven't told you a flat no way in hell, I'm probably going to end up doing them.
You will.
Right.
Oh, well, man.
I've overstayed my welcome by a long ways, and I pity you for having to edit this now, but whatever.
Oh, we don't edit here. I don't like editing, just like you don't like editing, and I can see it.
I don't enjoy it. Well, the thing that makes it hard is they all want to use things on the screen to set what you're editing, and that's my problem. If somebody would, could figure out a way to make it where you didn't have to see the screen, where you could actually, where it was more intuitive to how somebody who can't see the screen would do things, I would probably do it more often.
Right. Well, maybe there's a $1
million.
No. We need to stop getting into these.
I'm not listening.
$1 million ideas.
I'm not listening no more.
We've got to stop this.
I can't hear you.
We're gonna keep going for about 3 or 4 more hours if we don't stop right now. So
I know.
Max, let me close this out, and then we'll call it a day.
I'm sorry.
If you're still listening after a good 2 hours of this wonderful conversation, thank you. And make sure make sure you leave a comment for Max. Tell him what you think about this episode, so I can share it with him. And we'll catch you next time on the Dylan Experience. That was fun.